So the idea of this series, as I explained in the intro, was to introduce lead guitar playing, and the learning objectives from the start have been to be able to get you to the point where you're able to improvise a guitar solo, which sounded like a big ask at the start, but hopefully as we've been going through this material, going through these lessons, it's going to be set you up with a good foundation to be able to do that. Now, everything we've done so far has really been a preparation for what we're going to do now, and this is going to be the key part where we actually start improvising. So we've looked at the 12-bar progression that I introduced to you. In this case, we're doing the 12-bar blues in the key of A. By now you should be familiar, have it in your head, the sequence of that progression, the A, D, D, A, E, D, A, E progression. You've practiced playing along to it, either with single notes, with chords, and with the riffs that I've given you to have a go at. So as well as knowing the chords in the progression, you should be okay and familiar with what the changes sound like as you play through the progression. And I've given you the backing tracks as well, so that you can listen to how it should sound in context of what you're actually playing. So all you've done so far is actually copy what I've been playing, which isn't improvisation. It's all been for practice and to get the concept, the idea into your head, into your hands, as I thought it'd be useful for you to get to this point before we actually start doing the improvising. So now, what do we mean by improvising? In the first video, in the intro, I was doing some improvisation over the backing track that I've shared with you, and improvisation basically means that I'm making those notes up on the fly as I go along. I'm not copying someone else's music. I'm not trying to play a part by another guitar player that I've heard. I haven't prepared the music before, so going into what I played before, I had no idea what I was going to play. I turned on the backing track and then I made up those notes, put them together in order to what I thought would work for me on that occasion at that time. Now, on the most basic level, that is improvisation. It's just doing whatever you want on the guitar, playing the notes that you want to play. Now, when you look at a guitar, there's a lot of notes on it. I say there's actually only 12 notes on it, but you can play those in all different positions, all over the neck of the guitar. Slightly less options on an acoustic guitar because your neck only goes up to 12, 14 fret. I'm using an electric guitar in this instance, so in this case I've got a range of notes that I can play anywhere on the guitar. So it seems intimidating. It seems, well, how do I know which are going to be the right notes to play? If you're just playing along to nothing, so no backing track, no reference point, no chords or anything like that being played in the background, it really doesn't matter. You can play anything, and that's still improvisation, but it's not particularly creative in my opinion. The key to improvisation is being able to play some notes over another piece of music, in this case, or a 12-bar progression, and the notes sound musical and sound correct. Whether or not the things that you come up with, the ideas, the order that you play the notes, the speed that you play the notes, whether or not that's popular with other people or sounds fantastic, I can't guarantee that. That's not something that it's some guitar riffs are instantly recognisable. They'll sell millions of records. You'll see famous bands playing them in stadiums and the audience are clapping, cheering, throwing their underpants at them, etc. I've never been in that position, so it's a subjective thing as to what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. But what I'm going to try and achieve here is just give you something, give you some ideas, so that it sounds correct and doesn't sound wrong as a starting point for improvising. From that, you can take it to whatever level you want. You can always add things to it, add more flavours to it. So, moving on from what we've done with that 12-bar progression, playing over the sequence, we're going to use a scale to begin improvising with. Now a scale, if you're not familiar with that, is just a collection of notes. So it could be just 2 notes, and it could be 12 notes, which is a full chromatic scale. In this instance, we're going to use something called a pentatonic scale in the key of A. It's actually an A minor pentatonic. So what do I mean? Just to get the language out of the way. A minor is the key of the scale. The chords I played in another video were major chords. Now I'm using a minor scale. Why is he doing that? Don't worry about that, just trust me for now. We're going to use an A minor scale. The important thing is in A. Pentatonic, if you think of the word penta, it means 5, okay? So I think it's from Latin or Greek or something like that. So that means there's going to be 5 notes in our scale. So we only have to learn 5 notes in order to use this scale. It's got 5-note scale. Now, if you were to just jump on Google straight away and type in A minor pentatonic scale, you'll get some diagrams, you'll get some images. It'll probably look like a complicated arrangement of dots all over the fingerboard. The reason for that is, although there's only 5 notes on the guitar are repeated quite often all over the place. So, as a quick example, I'm in position 5 here, 5th fret. I'm playing an A. I could also play an A there, that's an octave higher, and another A, another octave higher. So just staying in that position, there's 3 different ways I can play the note of A. So if you go and Google it and you look at a lot of these scale diagrams, it does look complicated, but all we're doing is repeating the same notes in different positions. So it really isn't as bad as what it seems. What I'm going to do is break it down. We're just going to play 5 notes in one single position, literally just 5 dots on the fingerboard, and we're going to start from there, and then we're going to expand it from there, because that's going to be the easiest way to learn it. So when you look at these scale diagrams, if you were to Google the A minor pentatonic scale, the first thing you probably see is something that looks and sounds like this. That's what we call position 1 A minor pentatonic. Now, I've actually played the 12 notes in total there across all 6 strings, but the notes haven't been different. As I say, I've only actually played 5 notes. They've just been repeated in different places. So don't worry about the fact that it looks like when you watch someone playing solos, lead guitar, it looks like they're playing all over the place. Don't worry about that for now. We're just going to focus on our 5 notes that we're going to use. When I went through the riffs, I went through note by note with you, and I said we'll start off with, let's say for example, the first riff. Now I described the order of the notes to you. So I said the first note's going to be on the 5th fret of the E string, second note's going to be 7th fret of the A string, yada yada, because we play the riff in sequence. I want to get out of that habit. So with this pentatonic scale to start with, I'm not going to give you the order of the notes. What I'm going to do is either at the end of the video I'll attach a diagram, a scale diagram to it, so you can see the notes. If I'm not able to do that, I'll just link it in the description, because I'm really worried that I don't want you to learn or get into the habit of learning the notes in order, because what will probably happen then is that you'll want to play the notes in order, and it'll just sound like what I just played. You'll be going up and down and up and down the scale, because that's the way that I've told you. I think the benefit is, and I didn't actually learn it this way originally, I learnt it the up and down way, and when I started trying to play a lead guitar it sounded literally like that. I was starting at the bottom and it just sounded like I was doing a scale exercise, and that's a trap a lot of people fall into. So I don't want you to do that, so I'm going to try and show you a way that I've since learned that takes away that practice, just sounds like an exercise feeling, and makes it sound more organic and more creative when you're doing it. So I'm not being a meanie by describing it note by note. I'm trying to help you going forward in the future. So I'll either add a link to it, or I'll try and put edit into the video on this. I'll see if I can find a way, but I'm just going to use those 5 notes that I was using in the original playthrough that I did on the backing track. So again, if we remember, just put the track on, it comes on like. Just 5 notes. So again, just off the top, totally off the top of my head that, and I'm just using a pattern of 5 notes. So what I'll show you is those 5 notes, those little 5 dots, where to put your fingers on the fretboard, and that's what you can have a play with. As I said, don't worry how good it sounds to start with. When you first begin doing these things, it'll probably sound terrible for the first few attempts. Once you get used to doing it, you learn where those little finger positions where you need to put your fingers go, and then whilst you're listening to the backing track, you're thinking, oh, that one sounds okay at that point, but it doesn't sound as good at the next point. So for example, something might sound good over the A chord, might not sound as good over the D chord. And that's the trick in improvising. You'll get to build up experience and know which ones sound good over which chords. All of these notes in this scale will sound correct, so you're not going to play a wrong note. They'll all sound okay, but some will sound better than others at different points in the progression. So I'll add those. I'll add that scale so that you can see it. I think it's the best way to learn it. I'll put a link again to the backing tracks so you can practice along to it, and then I think in the next video I'll follow up and have a look at how we can actually expand that 5-note pentatonic shape and use it across other strings as well. Because as I say, you can. I played an example of the full position 1 across the 6 strings. You'll see people using it in all different positions around the guitar, up here on the electric guitar even. And it's just the same 5 notes, but with a little bit of practice and experience, you'll learn where those notes are on the guitar. So don't worry about going up and down here, there and everywhere for now. We'll just keep it simple in that position. I'll give you the notes, play along to the backing tracks, and when you're comfortable with that, have a look at the next one in the series. I'll expand that pentatonic scale a little bit further so that you can play it across all the strings, or perhaps even in different positions as well. The key to improvising, once you've got the tools, which hopefully I've given you now, you put the practice in. The more practice you put in, it's going to sound better and better and better. But the most important thing, enjoy.